Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
We're going to dive back into Critical Role, Campaign 2, Session 2, and there will be spoilers.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
All right, so this is number 2 in the Critical Watch series for us.
Critical Watch Season 2, Episode 2 review.
Yeah. So, we finally found a good jumping in point for Critical Role. Second campaign, Season 1, we watched that. I think we really enjoyed it overall. That brings us to Session 2. I actually watched most of this with my son and all of it with my wife again, which is kind of cool. We're kind of enjoying it, and I asked her how she liked it, and she's like, it's all right. I can watch it and listen and play on Facebook at the same time, because it was a really long session.
It was 4.5 hours of content. Now, again, as with all the Critical Role stuff, you've got that art clips in the beginning, and you've got the break period with commercials and what have you, and whatever kind of announcements that they were going to give. So there's less actual content than what's there, but for live stream content for that long, people need to have a break.
Yeah, so there's an intermission built in, which is cool. We're not watching live, so we're not sitting through all that other stuff. We kind of like fast forward through the beginning clip and the announcements, and probably if you're like me, you skip the break as well.
I skipped a break. I listened to the announcements, and they talked about what conventions, appearances, and stuff that they're going to have. I actually find it amusing when Sam reads his little spots.
Oh yeah, he's funny with that. He does a good job. They did the D&D Beyond thing, and he did like a crowd participation thing with it, which was kind of fun.
So that was cool as well.
And then I believe Marisha afterwards went and did the same thing, or was it Laura Bailey? I forget who did the other spot. I was kind of like, I was listening to that while I was doing other stuff. My wife was actually out grabbing a HDMI cable, so I didn't have to watch it on a laptop.
Nice.
That was definitely enjoyable to watch it on my TV instead of a laptop or my phone. Although my phone has a better picture than my TV by far.
All right, so we have a very protracted length and a very short story in episode 2 session.
Yeah, there's a lot of like splitting up the party and putting it back together kind of going on.
So I really enjoyed the antics of, once they got to the back to the tavern, and they decided that they were going to leave. Now, I felt that there was a number of things that could happen of like, are they going to sit and wait out the investigation and then move on to something else, or whether they do the let's sneak out and deal with this problem. And it becomes a real crux of a game when you give your players that kind of limitations. Okay, you're not allowed out of the tavern, you're not allowed out of the town. What do you do?
And everyone had like different limitations,
yes,
depending where you fell and things.
And I felt like
whether you attacked the guards or were part of the circus or not.
Right. So I felt like, all right, I've known some of the parties that I've DM'd for. I put that kind of limitation. They'll sit there with their feet up and say, okay, I'll spend the next 2 days waiting.
Or fight their way through the guards.
Or fight their way through the guards, and I'm leaving town regardless. And all of that is completely a possibility. I didn't know, like, I would love to be inside Matt's head and know, like, what kind of plans he had for if the party does X, Y, or Z.
I think this group has been playing together for a long time, so he has a good idea what his players are going to do. So that's not really a problem, because I also have players where I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, they would have did similar things where they would work the system.
Right. But getting back to, I like the fact that they used disguise self and they came up with these interesting things. They pulled out disguise kits and made up the other two, and the mage didn't really have any problem because he just was told not to leave the town.
Right.
So off they went. They didn't have to deal with the 7th player because
she ran off for one.
The character ran off. I think that actually happened because Ashley wasn't there this episode, and I think that's something that they had built into the story, that a character was not going to be there regularly, and I don't know if that's Yasha or not.
I had heard that, and I don't remember which one. I just know, like, the Critical Role fans that are more familiar with the cast did talk about that. I wonder what they're going to do because of so-and-so.
Right.
I just don't remember the specifics. So I'm guessing it's Yasha, but it could be any of them. They're all very very busy people and have a lot going on.
As long as it's not, Lara or Sam, I'll be fine, because those are those two characters are awesome, Jester and Nott.
So they're still your favorites?
Absolutely.
I feel like this session we got a lot more development out of Travis's character, Fjord.
Fjord, yeah, okay.
His personality was coming through more, and the way Fjord kind of thinks and does things, we're getting a bit more of that. Molly, we got more of the same with, and the same with Caleb. Do you have a least favorite character?
I don't know if I have a least favorite. If I was forced to make a decision, I would have to say it would be Mollymauk. I don't feel there's enough oomph there. He's sitting next to Lara, who, I'm sorry, she's currently the star of the show in my eyes. Because she's over the top with her role playing. She does things that just make me laugh hysterically. And it's times like, okay, well, is she doing this on purpose, or is she not realizing, like, some of the RP conversations she's had? It's like, oh, like the whole, like, adopted thing. Like, she just threw that out there, and it's like, oh God.
Well, the kind of the funny thing is, and it is funny because that's like another Travis interaction where he was trying to, like, smooth things over and be like, okay, we can work with this, and Lara just made it ridiculous. But my favorite interactions are Nott and Jester.
Okay.
Like, those two together are over
Gold.
the top ridiculous. Especially when they broke the case wide open 3 times. So
I have to say that I really enjoyed some of the stuff with Caleb in this particular episode. We've already spoiled a whole bunch of stuff. So, by the way, spoilers.
Yeah.
Haven't watched it yet.
I guess we'll put that in the beginning. Well, here's the thing. Like, Caleb is actually my least favorite character.
Okay.
Now, but that being said, I think Liam's doing an excellent job with the role playing.
Uh-huh.
I just don't feel I gravitate or pull towards the character at all. Like, his voice work with that character is really good. It's consistent, but that character is just not exciting to me.
Okay.
It's not, he's not as fun as some of the other characters. I feel like because Travis and Fjord are, like, speaking less, when they do, it's more impactful. And so as I see his character kind of, like, develop a little bit, I'm finding that more interesting. Beauregard, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Beauregard throughout the campaign. So I'm leaning towards I'm okay with it. I like. Because she's doing the total bro thing. I'm like, is this going to get old? And so far, we're still good. Marisha's doing a great job with that. I'm enjoying it.
When I look at Molly, like, I haven't felt anything Tiefling about him. I haven't felt anything, like, there was the one minor thing that he did in this past episode to talk about the blood hunter of, like, oh, I got to put the blood on the weapons, and the warlock totally saw right. So I was like, you're totally lying. Thank you for sharing that with me. I like it that you trust me. Like, I thought that was cool, but I just, like, other than that, he hasn't had any moments that I can say, all right, I like that. Every other character has had something that speaks to me.
Well, I want to say from the first episode, I really enjoyed his, like, reading the fortunes and things like that. And he has the tick with playing with the cards and that kind of things. And his connection and role playing with the circus, I really enjoy that as well.
With Caleb, when they went into the gnome's shop, I thought that was a nice, hilarious exchange. And you've got, Nott, who's literally in a packed shop. There's a little halfling girl. I'm sorry. I would have, if he was a player in my game, he would have walked out bulging because it's like he had some decent rolls, and there was this whole exchange with the cat where there's no way the gnome could have been possibly paying attention to the girl, and his pockets would have been full at that moment. I'm like, all right.
Oh, speaking of the cat, Matt Mercer's roleplay of the cat, some of my favorite moments in the show so far.
I thought it was hysterical that Caleb tried to sell or trade the cat to the
For the
gnome.
books.
It's like, here's his familiar. He can dismiss it on a whim. So here's his magical cat. I'm only going to come in once. It could have totally been a thing that he could keep reselling this cat. Like, this is what I was envisioning. He was going to come. He was going to trade the books for the cat. The cat would disappear. He'd come back, the next time. And I'm like, oh, I lost the magic cat. Well, I happen to have another one.
Especially because of the fact that, like, in the first episode, Nott and Caleb were kind of like talking about the different scams they pull.
Yes.
So it definitely worked with that. And we got to see that as well. The magic jar or box or whatever it was that transforms copper coins into silver coins.
Right. So I don't know if that's a sleight of hand thing or whether that's actually a magic item. So
I'm guessing it's like either minor magic like fool's gold or something like that, or it's a sleight of hand thing and it's a trick.
I'm interested to see where that winds up going, but like the interactions there that wound up happening, I was pretty cool with that. But all of that being said, there was like hours and hours worth of slow moving footage before we actually got to the crux of what the night's story was.
Yeah, well, first of all, like Matt Mercer's portrayal of each of the NPCs is really good. Obviously, he gets to shine anytime he gets to use different voices or different characters. That's what he does for a living. He's awesome at that. So he makes for great DM moments for him. Unfortunately, the players didn't get to interact with many very interesting characters. And just because of the nature of what they were, like the gnome in the shop was kind of okay and a little cool for him to go back to that. But it's like regular old guardsmen and the old guy that hired them from the first episode. And then I think we found out a little bit more about that backstory of what happened there. But there's a lot of this stuff that just seemed overly long and drawn out as a viewer that I would have probably enjoyed more as a player, but not so much for watching.
Now, part of that, I think, comes to what the players are going to do. And as a DM, you can't force that kind of stuff. But at the same time, as a DM, you have the power to create the situation that's going to expedite the game. So I don't know whether I would have actually put them in arrest or, tavern arrest. I'd be like, all right, while we're doing this, don't leave town, just like what was told to Caleb and Nott.
It still worked, though. I mean, the players worked it and made things happen anyway. So I think that part was fine and created some interesting moments as far as them trying to have to avoid things. There were some red herrings. It seems like they were investigating a couple times.
I don't know whether the red herring of like the guys in the three three guys in cloaks. I don't know whether that was
red herrings or foreshadowing.
It could have been foreshadowing. It could have been red herring. It could have been a backstory element for Nott's character that will later...
That Nott didn't know about?
Well, no, he's the one that brought it up.
I know, but he didn't know anything about them other than there was three dudes in cloaks.
Well, right, but I mean, he could have put that in his backstory, that I saw this, and it could be leading to other stuff. It could be...
Well, they had to do something to get that level.
That's
confirmed
true.
Level 2.
I know. I was gonna bring that up at some point in time.
I want to know what their stat generation is. It looks like rolls.
Yeah, I listen more than I watch. Mm-hmm. So like I think I've seen Nott's character twice and nobody else's.
Yeah, like
he's got a charisma of 5.
Yeah, there's 2 characters that have negatives, and then the rest of them have really bumpy stats. So it looks like to me it might be rolled. I don't know. Maybe they use the Matt Colville method, which is a special way where it's like you have to have X amount of bonuses to be a viable character. Where they're more like superhero characters,
right?
From like we used to play with in the old days.
In the old days, yeah.
So you want some like super heroic. All in all, like if I had to kind of like sum this session up, I think it was well executed from a DM standpoint for a D&D game. It was, fun to watch the characters, and it would be a fun game to play in, but it was not a fun game to watch. It just seemed like it was 2 hours too long to me. But that comes to another point. Like I've heard the argument that, Critical Role isn't real D&D, and like there's plot armor and there's, all these different things. And to me, that very much seemed like a real game of D&D that would happen at the table. And I'm not sure if that's what I want to watch. You know, like when we do streamed games, and I'm not trying to compare us to them, but we do think about the audience watching. Like, we don't want a lot of dead space. We want to keep things moving. And also, you know, we also don't tend to run our games that long when we're doing streamed games.
We
not our in-person games. That's just literally us just like, hey, here's the camera, here's us doing what we normally do. And that's kind of, that's what Critical Role reminds me at a higher level.
Mm-hmm. You know, I look at like our games, and we do aim for that, for the live streamed games, we aim for that 2 to 3 hour benchmark. Not only because it's not possible for us to do breaks. We have to do, all right, you sit down at the camera and go. So, like, if for some reason...
It is possible, but we're just not as techie.
Okay, well, all right. It's not possible for us yet. But, you know, so when you look at this kind of thing, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, well, we've got all of that stuff because we've literally seen the set and their lighting and camera and mic setup. We were fortunate enough to actually be, you know, at Geek and Sundry the night that they were filming an episode of Critical Role. So it was really cool to be in that space at that point in time. Now, that being said, I would not just sit and watch this and do nothing else. That there's just not enough there to hold me for 4.5 hours, especially watching live. But if I'm doing something else and this is there and I'm focusing like 80% of my attention towards it, it's enough for me to keep going.
So I think we've kind of agreed, like, we're going to probably watch a couple more sessions for sure and decide if we want to keep going with it or not. Like, if they're all like the last night when I watched it, that's not enough for me to keep doing it. And a lot of the work that I do for Nerdarchy, I can't listen to stuff and work at the same time. So to dedicate, you know, for a 4-hour block or more sometimes, from my understanding, to this, it's not entertaining enough for me over the span of that much time. Now, would I like to play in that game? Absolutely. Would I like to run for those characters? Sure. I mean, they'd probably kick me out of the DM seat, you know, from behind the screen after playing at Matt's games. But, you know, that with that being said, last night didn't sell me. It was too long for not enough entertainment for me personally.
Do you have any like favorite moments or favorite sayings from that second session?
From the second, yes, absolutely. When they cracked the case 3 times,
okay.
Nott and Jester, the back and forth and the interaction between that was great. And there was like a couple different instances with that, and each one was funnier than the last.
Favorite moment, and I swear this is going to be a shirt on the Critical Role, store. Smells like Caleb in here.
Oh, that is pretty good. There was also, what was it? Sexual innuendo graffiti watch. So apparently they're tracking this. And if you weren't watching, you wouldn't see it because it's one of the things that pops up in in that panel they kind of flip through.
I saw some things that would pop up every once in a while when they make rolls and what have you. But like I said, more often than not, I'm not watching. I've got other stuff going on. I every once in a while I have to pop back in and like see what's actually going on, even though there's not a huge amount of visual. Mm-hmm. Another thing that's
or they say or do something and you're like, what just happened here?
Yeah. I will say that what the second session did for me and for D&D as a whole is, again, not having watched any other previous Critical Role, is it shows that you can have a session of D&D without combat.
Yeah, they totally did that. So, also, we got a little more of the backstories and character development in this as well. Like I said, if they could have condensed this down to like 2.5, 3 hours, it would have been amazing.
I agree.
That's my overall takeaway. We'll come back and check out a couple more and see if we're going to keep going with it or not. But, that's kind of our synopsis and our take of session 2 of the second campaign of Critical Role. But, guys, what do you think? Put your comments down below in the comments section. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.